At the beginning of the year, I was up at my parents' house, and my dad and I spent some time talking and laughing and talking about the ways that we are. My dad and I are very similar. And one of the things that encompasses who we are people who by default have a tendency to just kind of go, that aren't content with sitting and being still. We're constantly fiddling or picking or playing with flowers or fixing dinner or working or on the move, just constantly doing something. I've even had a client comment about it when we were in the middle of a Marco Polo conversation that, do you ever stop moving? And the perhaps sad news is that I've actually gotten a whole lot better about this. There were times in my life that were way more extreme than they are today. However, I do still find myself kind of on the ups and downs of feeling like, screw this, I'm done, I'm apathetic, and I'm just going to kind of ride the apathy contentment train versus I've got to go, I've got to hustle, I've got to grind, I've got to prove myself. Recently, I've been in a little bit of the latter phase of I've got to go, grind, hustle, and prove myself, and found myself just recently running on a run. I tend to listen to a lot of books and podcasts when I'm running, and I'm listening to the book Reboot by Jerry Colonna. Wonderful book. I will throw another recommendation in, I'm sure, at the end of this, because it is truly one of these that's going to alter my life. And the third chapter in, he's talking about his own experience and his experience of running, hustling, bustling, having to be busy, having to prove, having to advance, having to achieve, to find self-worth and to find value and to prove himself, essentially. And he described his own phase of burnout and pain and suffering through that. And it really kind of hit me in the gut. So much so I had to pause the book. I couldn't keep listening to it. And instead, my entire run home, the song that was playing in my head was that Jackson Browne song, Running on Empty. He asks at the end of each of the chapters in this book, Reboot, he has self-reflective questions. And one of the questions in this section of the book is, what am I running from? And where am I running to? And he challenges us to think about how to instead learn to be still. And he talks about his own practice to find that stillness and that space of wisdom in the stillness. And that's not my go-to. My go-to is to quickly find a quote unquote solution. And what I tend to notice, what I know that the deeper wisdom within me says, is that when I find that quick fix solution, what I'm really doing is I'm creating later problems down the road, rather than sitting in the stillness and finding a deeper, more long-standing solution, which is more uncomfortable. I highly, highly, highly recommend reading Reboot or listening to it as I am, and perhaps maybe not doing it while running. It's a little ironic that I'm finding that I'm never still while running. The book is phenomenal. The questions in it are, I think he calls them radical self-acceptance questions, or radical self-exploration. They're powerful. And if you're finding yourself in a state of constant kind of anxiety, contentment, and never finding a state of being that seems sustainable, it's a good one to give a read. So take some time today to ask yourself that question too. If you do find yourself in that state, what am I running from? And where am I running to? And if I can't fully identify that, maybe I really do, or even if I can fully identify it, maybe I really do need to slow down and just sit still and learn how to just be.